Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how I cleaned up, painted and weathered the Merr Sonn Power 5 Imperial Blaster. So let's go! So after the moulding and casting process, the master was covered in bits of silicone and clay. The silicone had got all inside the workings of the blaster, so I decided to do a complete strip down. I disassembled the whole thing just to clear out all that silicone and get rid of all the clay residue that was sitting on all the surface. It was worth just taking it apart to clean all the bits. I even took off the pieces I'd previously glued on, which were the side cylinder pieces there. Now, the only modding I had to do to this was to drill a couple of holes. So the first one I was going to put into the receiver here. This is to take the wire that comes from the sight piece on top of the gun. I just had to drill that out. I drilled all the way down actually to that the pin in the back. Probably shouldn't have gone that far because it made the pin fall out, but you get the idea. There's no reference for this, but this is where I thought it put the wire. And once it was clean, I was ready to reassemble the whole gun. So the main blaster was reassembled. The flash hider is just attached via that screw on the underneath, so that just went back on. And the whole Denix was just reassembled. The top piece slid on. It was quite tricky to get the trigger to work again. You've got the cocking mechanism with the hammer and the trigger with a few pins in there and springs. They were a bit tricky to get working, but it still cocks and fires, so that's good. Now to glue on all the pieces, I just used regular super glue. First, my modified piece here went onto the ejector there, and the sight greeblies were just glued in place using super glue again onto the piece of T-track that's on the bull barrel. The piece of coiled wire was cut to length and glued into the antenna piece. This was then measured by pulling it back to the back of the gun and seeing where I wanted it to sort of trim off. I cut it short and glued it in place, again just with super glue. It was looking good so far, so now all we had to do was paint up all those added bits, blend them in and weather it. For this main first pass of colour, I used mainly Tamiya paints. We have a dark iron. This really matches closely the colour of the Denix. It looks a bit off on camera, but in person it's really close. And once you blend it in with the weathering, it really doesn't notice. For these, as with a lot of my weathering, I use the water mixable oil colours by Winsor & Newton. These are really great. They give a real sort of greasy gun look to your props, like actual metal would have grease on it. They just have this thing about them that acrylics don't have. They take a lot longer to dry, about a week, but it's definitely worth it for the effect that they give. I just dabbed it on with a really bad, crappy brush, and then, as you can see, just dabbing it off with some tissue paper. To start the weathering, I just began to chip away some of the paint I just put on. The adhesion wasn't so much that I couldn't just pick it off with my nail. This is good. It's meant I can just go at it with just about anything to take that layer of paint off. I ended up using a file and some different things just to knock off the paint on some of those edges, which I think worked really well, and I was really happy with how it looked. Now, just to blend in some of that weathering, I use a different oil colour. It's always good to use different colours when you are weathering. It just adds a little extra level of realism in there. It looks quite brown when you're looking at it through the camera here, but when you get that sort of distance to it, it really blends together, and it actually dried down really well and blended right in. You can see those added parts now look almost identical to the base Denix gun. And here we go, ready for the final reveal. Pah! And there it is. our finished Merr Sonn Power 5. Now, I'm really happy with how this one turned out. I love how well the flash hider is weathered here. I think it looks great. This is going to look great up on the shelf along with the other blasters that I've done. Now, if you're watching this at around the time of the upload that I did it, I still have some of the rubber kits available over on my Facebook page. If you wanted to head over there and check those out, that would be much appreciated. It's over at Buckethead Props on Facebook. Nice and easy. I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you're all well. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye bye. Rebels!